It's me! You're gonna see or hear the kids in the background because I haven't done a video in a long time. So, I just finished watching the Quantum Leap that was the time loop one, and I do love a time loop. I did like, so that when I walked through the episode as much as I can remember it. So, him figuring out he's in the room and then being like, holy crap, like all of a sudden, and then fire, and then watching Ben's stats go down. Addison's reaction was probably the best acting she's done so far in the entire show. Ian's, feeding off of that, her scream, like she didn't like, oh no, whatever, she just, her guttural scream was just, it was hard, like I got all misty watching that. I mean, knowing this episode was going to be a time loop, but still getting misty about how she must have felt. I thought it was intense. So then it was interesting to watch how he kept leaping into like different people, and I was trying to figure out like the order of operations, and like, you do still do a little bit of analysis when it comes to things. I did like how they did make you focus on dumb little details, and eventually it was one of those dumb little details that did mean something. Like, I thought that the soda that had spilled on the floor was going to mean more. It wasn't. It did, as far as buying time in that one of the last leaps where, the physicist dude tripped. But I thought it was like part of the problem. The pen clicking, I gotta say, didn't really see the pen clicking coming, because I just thought, our brains are hardwired for pens being stupid. I did like the red herring of the letter, being more important to the story than it was, than originally it first was. I actually liked what was happening at home just as much. Like, it was just as, sometimes, more often than not, our leaps are more scary. Like, what's happening on the leap is more high-paced energy than what's happening back at home base. But in this case, it was both. You know what I mean? Like, they were 50-50 as far as who is more, what has more tension, what needs to be resolved more. The weird Janice relationship, I kind of like that we are still keeping Janice in a weird little gray area. I was happy that I mentioned Sam. I feel like so much time has passed since they mentioned Sam that it almost threw me off, and I was like, wait, who's Sam? Oh, I know who Sam is. I do still like how much we're still making Sam and Al part of our story, because I want them to, but in the same token, like you said, I want them not to. There's Olivia coughing. So then, I did giggle at the part where, Addison is like, you can remember, I love how you remember all of these movies, but you can't remember that you loved me for 4 leaps. Like, I giggled at that, because I was like, I was thinking the same thing. Like, you can remember that dumb, obscure stuff, but you can't, remember the important stuff. So, I thought that was interesting. I do love a time loop, but in the same token, time loops can get excessive after a while. How many times can we watch them explode before it gets old? I did like that we put a closed loop on this. Like, as soon as you run out of humans, that's the end of that. I thought that was an interesting take on the story. I also liked that, regardless, it was the last person in the whole bunch of things. But I did like how the person with, like, the least prestigious job was the one, whose leap he took, who was the most important, who could have gotten more access, anything. I kind of like that vibe here. I did think that it was interesting that, like, it had shades of, like, didn't have shades. I complain about this in other videos. We know that this is the 60s, because this is, we have Kennedy on the television making his wonderful little speech. But it also, aside from, like, the big bad's haircut, it could have felt exactly like it was happening yesterday. The big bad did make very good points, which is actually kind of frightening, with what he's doing. I did like the little hat tip to flying cars. I thought that was you know what I mean? Like, I thought that was interesting. But I liked that they had that. I also thought it was interesting, like, I realized that we were doing it based on quantum leap timelines or whatever, but, like, they felt that time travel has been around for, all the years that it has, when we know it's not here yet, because we're infinitely more delayed than, TV shows. But like I did like how they did play with like the progression of technology as they need to. Magic is always magic in this. I'm almost done, baby. Magic is always magic in this. I liked his concerns, his grief, his discussion about how grief works, how grief doesn't have a schedule and stuff like that. All in all, like, Magic is always my favorite character on the show, and then Ian, and then, I guess the others. Jan, I guess, is growing on me, but she's still, like, meh. But, yeah, I actually really liked this episode a lot. I thought it was really good. They did it in a very interesting way. I kind of felt like the ending, they tied it up in a bow a little too quick. And I don't know why. It was just, I guess that we wanted to give time at the end for Janice and for the Magic and Jan talk and blah, blah, blah. And I get that. But I feel like we wrapped it all up just way too in a bow. Like, the moment we found out the bad guy, instead of having a whole big, like, whatever, we literally spent, like, 2 minutes discussing that, and then all of a sudden we're leaving. And that's fine. But, I would be interested to see how much this pushed forward sustainable energy, because I think a massive finding like that would have, that early on, would have been much more revolutionary than it is. And I appreciate the fact that, we saved these 3 people's lives and stuff like that, but the sustainable energy thing is bigger, I feel, on a global aspect, but that's just my personal point of view. It just started raining for some weird reason. Anyway, that's my thoughts. I'm going to watch your video in a little bit, in a minute, when I get home with the kids and stuff like that, but I wanted to give you my review before I watched your review, and while I still had the episode fresh in my head. Alright, talk to you soon. Bye!